10 years. 10 years of Michael Bay Transformers. We're finally at the 5th one. What are the Rotten Tomatoes scores for those movies again? Oh yeah. You did your job. Transformers: The Last Night is the 5th installment of the Transformers film series brought to us by Michael Bay, and it's supposedly his last film. He's been saying that for about the 3rd one and the 4th one, so maybe this time he's actually being serious, but I don't frickin' care at this point. Let me try to quickly go over what the plot of this movie is. Paramount wants to set up a Transformers cinematic universe. They didn't do that with the other ones, but now they really want to do that, and so they made this movie. There you go. In all seriousness, Optimus Prime went up in the end of Age of Extinction to meet his creator, and he finds out that there's this woman creature robot thing named Quintessa, and she basically mind controls him to be evil and go to Earth searching for something. And back on Earth, you have Cade Yeager, who's housing the Autobot team from the last movie, and while being on the run from this agency called TRF, which is a Transformer Reaction Force, Anthony Hopkins, playing Sir Edmund Burton, finds him and informs him about this impending doom that he needs to stop with a new partner, Vivian Wembley, played by Laura Haddock. And that's pretty much the easiest way to sum up the plot of this film. In case you guys don't know, I've had an interesting history with this film series. In my video, my expectations for Transformers: The Last Night, I wasn't kidding. I've been a fan of this series since 6 years old. I love the first one still now. The second one sucks. Third one, I like, actually. The 4th one's pretty bad, but as a kid, I didn't know that the first 3 had a lot of problems. I just loved all 3 of them. Now that I've gotten older, I can acknowledge the flaws in them, especially with number 2. And even after I saw the 4th movie, you can go back to my review that is still on this channel. I was in denial. I was trying to say that it was a guilty pleasure. And I was thinking, maybe they did something new because they assembled a writer's room with different writers, and the writers of this film, one of them did Black Hawk Down, and 2 of them did Iron Man. So I thought that's a good combination. Maybe getting rid of Aaron Kruger is a good thing. Maybe Michael Bay can actually make a good movie out of this again. But at the same time, I tried to keep my expectations in check because I've seen Transformers get bad, 2 and 4. So I went into this film somewhat interested to see if they could change anything at all, but I kept my expectations low because I know how bad Transformers can be. I walked out of this film, and I gotta say, it is easily the best film of 2017, and one of the best films I've seen in my entire life. In all seriousness, though, this film infuriated me. It infuriated me unlike any other Transformers film actually has before. This film is garbage. It is the worst Transformers film easily. And as soon as I say that, I know a lot of people are gonna go like, well, what did you expect? It's just another Michael Bay romp with the Transformers. This doesn't even feel like a Michael Bay Transformers film. It feels like a bunch of directors came together and couldn't see eye to eye. So it's just a mishmash of a bunch of Transformer-related scenes that don't really add up. At least when I think back to the other 4 Transformers films, I can tell that all of this is just Michael Bay. It's Michael Bay losing his mind, but you can still kind of pinpoint like where the flow of the story is going. The movies might be overlong, but you can sense some form of structure. This film tries to be fast-paced, and I think that was their way of trying to make up for the 2-hour and 45-minute runtime of Age of Extinction, which is a cool idea, but with a plot this convoluted, doing a fast pace doesn't work. After the King Arthur introduction scene, I failed to have a sense of any form of story flow, any structure whatsoever. It doesn't even feel like Michael Bay really directed this movie. It has some of the Michael Bay isms as far as using racial stereotypes for some of the robots, some offensive humor, and also the Michael Bay firework explosion, but those are really just elements. A lot of this movie, even the action scenes as a whole, don't really feel like Michael Bay. And I'm not saying that the movie not feeling like Michael Bay is a bad thing because I'm a fan of Michael Bay. I'm really not that big a fan of his. I don't overall hate him because he's done some good, but overall it's just, he's a mixed bag. So having a Transformers film not feel like a Michael Bay film can also be really good. It's just in this film, while it also doesn't feel like a Michael Bay movie, it doesn't feel like a good structured film. The action scenes are lame. None stand out in this film. At least you can go back to Revenge of the Fallen, and there's the forest fight, and it's incredible. And even in Age of Extinction, there's a couple cool moments action-wise in there. There's nothing. There is nothing in here. And a lot of the action scenes in this film are Transformerless. And whenever they do show up, it's about 2 minutes long, and they barely do anything new or cool. It's so lame. I was honestly shocked to see how freaking lame this movie was. Even on an action, like Michael Bay talking about, this is gonna be my last one, I'm going out with a bang. What bang? Did we miss it? And even the end battle scene, that wasn't even like 50 minutes long like I thought it was going to be. It was like around, like maybe a 25-minute long end battle scene, which is still pretty long, but a lot of it is just dull. And a lot of it is human-oriented. And that's the overall flaw with all of these Transformers films, is that the humans are focused on way too much. Michael Bay, Paramount, writers, the Transformers are the interesting ones. We want to see them interact with each other. We don't care about any human subplot you have. We want to see Autobots and Decepticons. And that's a thing Age of Extinction gets some credit for, is that even though the Autobots themselves weren't as well written, they interacted with each other at least, and you could pick up on some personality. In this film, they go right back to the basics of, there's an Autobot just standing in the background. He might have a line to say, but after that, we're just gonna pan the camera down to the humans, and the CGI is just gonna disappear in the next shot. That happened a lot in this movie. Once again, there'll be something CGI in one shot, but then they cut down to maybe a smaller one, and you can't see where it is anymore. There's also some shots that, like, I don't know what was going on. Like, there was a shot of, like, Hound, and there's, like, this car in the way, and they started moving, and behind that car, they revealed there's another Autobot there that we've not seen before, we've not been introduced to before, and it has the blue eyes, so it must be an Autobot that's hanging out with them. So I'm like, who is this guy? Where'd he come from? That Autobot disappears in, like, the next shot. I was so, like, what happened? And also later on in the movie, Hot Rod and Bumblebee are trying to run away from Sir Edmund Burton's castle, and right in front of them as they're walking out of a gate, there's just a weird robot in front of them who just falls down and doesn't even transform or anything, it just falls down, and that's the end of that scene. What was that? That just, stuff like that happens in this movie. And of course, the returning aspect ratio changes from Age of Extinction come back, where all of a sudden, in between shots, not specific sequences, just in between shots, they'll go from the widescreen perfect HD stuff to just narrow black bars, and then back to widescreen black bars. Who thought that was a good idea? It's not, and there's a difference from having the changes happen, like, between sequences. Like, if you want the black bars for just, like, people talking, and then widescreen for big action or something with a huge visual effect, okay, but at least make sure that the sequence, the entire sequence, has that, so you don't have to cut back to a shot that is so jarring to look at because the aspect ratio changes. Michael Bay didn't do that right. It'll just be a shot of, like, Megatron standing in front of a human, right? But then when they have to cut down to the human, the aspect ratio changes. It's like, why are you doing this? This is not a good idea. And the visual effects themselves are garbage, so it's not like we have to see them in widescreen anyways. I've honestly been so mad about this. The first three Transformers films have incredible CGI work. The second one, a little iffy at times, but for the most part, it's done really well. Age of Extinction, someone on the effects team just decided, you know what, we'll give them all the pre-rendered stuff because we're not done yet, but the movie's gonna be released in like 2 hours, so they can just take all that. And they continued the same thing with this one, at least The Decepticons don't break into blocks anymore. They don't even explain how Galvatron went from Megatron and stopped turning into blocks, but who frickin' cares, I guess. And even near the end of the movie, when it gets to visual effects overload, it looks so awful, man. I hate it. It reminded me of Age of Extinction again, like where I have all the blocky Decepticons like going around, but then Dinobots will come in, and it looks so terrible, and it looks so bad in this one too. And I was just thinking, why? Why does the visual effects still look awful? The movie is shorter than Age of Extinction. They clearly had more time to render this. What is holding them back from having good visual effects works? And honestly, I don't know what it is. Because the first 3 Transformers films came out before this, 2007, 2009, 2011, look way better than the visual effects they have in 2017. And I want to talk about the Autobots and Decepticons as characters, because I was hoping that that was what they were going to do, bring that from Age of Extinction, but no, they don't. I was honestly quite surprised a couple days ago when they released like the full roster of Decepticon characters. I was like, okay, are they gonna have actual scenes of interaction? Is like that one scene from Dark of the Moon where they're in Africa gonna be like their entire Decepticon screen time? In this one, no! There's one scene ripped right out of Suicide Squad where Megatron is going over the list of people on his team, and the title card will show up while they're being released from Transformer prison, I guess. And then in the very next scene that these Decepticons are in, most of them die. Sorry if that's a spoiler, but most of them just get blown to bits, and like 3 of them survive till the later big action scene near the end. What was the point of that title card Suicide Squad prison scene if you were just gonna kill most of them off? And of course you have some racial stereotypes for them. One of them said mofo at least 3 times, and that was... And also it was the voice of Mudflap, the guy who voiced Mohawk, he voiced Mudflap from Revenge of the Fallen, so that makes sense. And there's even one Decepticon that shows up named Berserker or something like that, and when Megatron lists him, like, you gotta release Berserker, and they cut to him, like, acting all crazy. I'm like, oh, is Berserker gonna be, like, a really violent member of this team? Is he gonna kill someone? But then Lennox just goes, absolutely not, and they move on. So it was just there to be there. What was the point? And I already mentioned earlier how they never explain how Galvatron goes to Megatron. They don't explain how Barricade's still been alive ever since he got shot in the face in Dark of the Moon. Like, at the end of Transformers 2007, like, okay, Bumblebee just kind of beat him up and he was, like, glitching and stuff. Okay, whatever. But in Dark of the Moon, they shoot him. Like, they literally shoot him in the face. Everyone assumed that he was dead. There was nowhere else for him to go. Yet he's in this movie again. Why? No explanation. I thought maybe that would be a cool story thing between him and Bumblebee. Maybe there'd be a big fight. There isn't. There's one chase with them, and the scene ends very quickly. They don't even transform to fight. It's just like a street race thing. It's so lazy. This one feels the most lazy out of all of them, because it doesn't even feel like Michael Bay was trying to please any fans. I don't even know if fans are going to love this movie like they did with the other ones, because the Transformers don't really do much at all of importance or coolness. Like, I predicted in my expectations video that Crosshairs and Drift were gonna die because they didn't have character posters, and characters like Hound and Hot Rod and Bumblebee did, and I found out walking out of the movie, wow, those character posters were just complete bullcrap, because none of these Autobots really stand out at all. Even the Bumblebee brothers-in-arms relationship with Hot Rod is not explored at all. Like, they show, like, one scene where they kind of, like, nudge each other's arms or something, and then they just drive with each other and they shoot guns next to each other later on. That's not a brothers-in-arms relationship. That's just like, hey, man, you're pretty cool. Like, maybe we knew each other in Nazi Germany time. Oh, and by the way, if you were excited to see a bunch of scenes involving the Transformers being involved with a lot of the history of the Earth, don't be. It's not even really that important to the story. Like, all they had to keep was the King Arthur thing. That's all they really needed, but for some reason they wanted to include Nazi Germany and others. I still don't see the purpose of that. And Optimus Prime going evil, if you're going into this movie excited for that, don't be. Once again, they kind of open the movie with him finding his creator, then later on, like in the last third act, that's when he actually shows up and actually does the fight with Bumblebee thing. Like, he's not even in a big important part of the movie. And that fight, if you were anticipating that, you thought, oh man, he's gonna kill Bumblebee or he's gonna wreck him so hard. Oh, Bumblebee's getting some hits in, this is gonna be awesome. Don't be excited for that either. That fight was underwhelming. It was like the Batman v Superman fight. Underwhelming as all hell. And also, you have no reason to feel really that scared for Bumblebee when Optimus Prime, like, beats him up really bad, because you see earlier in the movie, like, a human gun, like, blows him to bits, but he comes back together. Like a magnet, like whoop, and his head comes back on and all that. So there's no reason to fear, like, oh no, Optimus Prime took off his car wing door things, because they're just gonna attach themselves again. There's nothing special about any of these action scenes, and they all had the potential to be big, over-the-top, fun, anything. It's just that Michael Bay apparently didn't give a crap. I think this is the one. He said, I'm going out with a bang. He went out with, like, a dud. I think about the other 4 movies, and I can feel like Michael Bay had some passion for this thing, because it feels like a Michael Bay fest. Like, all of it has Michael Bay written on it. This is the one time where I'm thinking, I don't think Michael Bay really wanted to be here. A lot of this is just really rushed and lazy. It doesn't even want to try to get invested with the convoluted plot. It doesn't go over long like it usually does. It's relatively short for what I thought the movie could have ended up being. And there's just really nothing to get attached to. Even as a fan of Transformers, I try to look at both perspectives, like seeing like, okay, I can see where a lot of people will hate this movie, but people who are a specific fan of this series, will they love it? I don't even think they will at least think it's decent. I honestly don't think so, because this movie's so lame. Because as I said earlier, a lot of this movie doesn't focus on the Autobots that could be cool. Even the baby Dinobots that they keep promoting, like, that barely played a part in this at all. They were there for like 2 scenes, then they disappeared. Those baby Dinobots and Grimlock, like, they just disappear out of nowhere, no idea where they went. Instead of focusing on the cool Autobot or Decepticon characters, we gotta focus on the lame humans again, Vivian Wembley and Cade Yeager in particular. Cade Yeager, I liked in Age of Extinction. He was a somewhat relatable character I could get attached to. In this movie, it just feels like Mark Wahlberg bumbling around a set being the cool action dude. There's no real sense of that character anymore. And even Vivian Wembley, they try to add in some character for her that's, you know, connected to the convoluted story. And I'm like, okay, I can see this working, but a lot of this character really does rely on her relationship with Mark Wahlberg, and they don't have any chemistry at all. If you couldn't tell from the trailers, at some point they're supposed to lip lock, and I don't feel it. I don't feel any romantic chemistry between them. I saw a lot of bickering between them, and that honestly felt more real than the actual, like, romantic, like, I like you chemistry. Anthony Hopkins shows up in this movie, God bless him. John Turturro embarrassed himself in Transformers 1 through 3. Stanley Tucci embarrassed himself in Transformers 4 and in this movie. And then Anthony Hopkins, dude, sir, no, please, why? And I could maybe forgive the fact that Anthony Hopkins is in this movie if he was like a voice. I mean, John Goodman voices an Autobot in this movie. Like, okay, whatever, that's an easy thing. Show up in a booth and say some lines. He had to show up on a set and travel places. Like, he actually got involved in this film. And I was just thinking, why, Anthony? Why would you pick this movie? You did Collide earlier, and that was a boring piece of crap. And now you do this, which is an even bigger piece of crap. Especially character-wise. Anthony Hopkins annoyed me. He was irritating in this movie. And there were some interviews where he was talking about, like, this is the most fun I've ever had on a film set. How? I honestly don't know. Maybe for you it's fun to just, like, not even try to act like this is just so easy for you. But this is so annoying. The jokes you are telling were never landing. There is not a single joke in this movie that lands. It's typical, just the same old humor again. And even the robot butler Cogman, they try to add in like, hey, who's the C-3PO ripoff, huh? And he's supposed to be a sociopath and he's violent and stuff. I don't care. Cogman sucks too. He and Anthony Hopkins annoyed me a lot in this film. Holy crap! Cogman, he's the only robot in this film that gets more screen time out of anyone, and he's irritating too. He's walking around the humans, it doesn't feel like he's actually there. Something about just how he looked, CGI-wise. You can tell that there's a lot of detail to his body, but when you see him just actually move around the set and move around these people, it doesn't look real in the slightest. And if you guys were really excited about the girl power thing with Isabel Moner, don't be. I don't know if you ever were, but seriously, don't be. that is such an unimportant factor of this film. I have no idea why they put it in. You know why? They only put it in because Star Wars, The Force Awakens was popular. So let's have an orphan girl just like Rey, have her traveling alone with this little robot that resembles BB-8. That would be Squeaks, and that's pretty much why they did that. I don't buy her as this character at all, and her character overall was useless, and the Squeaks BB-8 ripoff thing, very obvious that it was ripping off BB-8. It only made like little noises. I think it's a chihuahua at one point. And of course the girl is talking to it and it just cuts to him going like, brah, brah, and she goes like, no, I know you're scared, man, but you gotta go out there. Like, you're talking, it's like someone was talking to an astromech in Star Wars. And also a comedian, I think, Jared Carmichael, is hanging out too. He's pretty much just TJ Miller. They pretty much just swapped out TJ Miller for this guy in this movie. I don't get it. What was the point of a lot of this, actually? Also, do not be excited for Josh Duhamel coming back as Colonel Lennox, because he's also really lame. They set up an interesting point like, oh, I'm working with the guys hunting the robots, but a lot of these people don't know about the good ones. And then there's like this other soldier he's with that doesn't agree with him or whatever. Poorly written, terribly executed. They rush through that in an instant. There's nothing interesting going on there. And Tyrese Gibson doesn't even show up. I was waiting for Tyrese. I was thinking like they announced him. He's gonna be here. He and Josh Duhamel, they're fun. Never shows up. Where was he? Guys, everything down to just the aspect ratio and the sound and also just how they put up the credits and the title card of this film is lazy. Honestly, watch how they put up the title card of this movie. That is a really great representation of how lazy the entire movie is. And I honestly don't think it's Michael Bay's fault. I walk out of the other 4 movies thinking, yeah, that was a Michael Bay fest. 2 of them I like and 2 of them I hate. But this one, I can't tell if it was the writer's room that was trying to shoehorn in a bunch of stuff to set up the universe, or if it was actually Michael Bay's fault, or if it was Paramount's fault. I can't tell anymore. That's the thing. I think that the series just needs to end. But I can't say that because the director of Kubo and the Two Strings is making the Bumblebee prequel, and I want to see how that turns out. And I'm sure a lot of other people want to see how that turns out. That'll make a lot of money, like this movie's gonna make, and we're gonna get more Transformers, and they don't care. Honestly, guys, I walked out of this movie bewildered, and I knew instantly that whatever I do here, I'm not going to be satisfied with it, because I had so much to say. I'm probably forgetting a lot of things that really made me mad with this movie. I know no matter how long this thing is, no matter how much I talk about this film, I'm not going to be satisfied because there's so much more that I want to discuss. There's too much. The visual effects are easily the worst out of the series. The robot characters should have been in it more, but of course, we gotta focus on the humans, and that takes away from it all because the human characters all suck too. The story itself is not interesting. It even contradicts itself. Not only does it contradict other Transformers films, but it contradicts itself. They set up something like, this can only happen if we do this, but then later on in the movie, something just happens without them doing anything. It just happens magically, and I'm like, dude, you already set up that you need a certain thing to do this, yet you did it anyways magically? Guys, I am mad. Honestly, I am really angry. I was trying to think of, like, as far as worst films of the year, trying to rank, like, my Fs so far, and I tried to make arguments, like, for this and Resident Evil, like, at least I can make out the action in this film, but it's still dull, and I'm still more angry about this movie than I was Resident Evil. Guys, honestly, I'm really mad and sad because I think Transformers could be like a Fast and Furious franchise. The movies aren't entirely that smart, but they can still be a lot of fun. I think Transformers needs to be that. It's just that the studio, Michael Bay, the writers, whoever, are so inept that they can't figure out how to do that. And I'm honestly amazed. I honestly do think that this is the worst Transformers film, and I hate Transformers Revenge of the Fallen as much as the next guy. My only redeeming quality in that is the forest fight between Optimus, Megatron, and Grindor and Starscream. At least Revenge of the Fallen has one scene where I'm thinking, that's great. The last night opens up with a, okay, this could be an interesting scene, but then one character starts talking, and he's annoying, and he's talking to a Transformer in a drunken way, being really annoying. And I was like, this scene is ruined. I hope there's another scene that can redeem it. There's no other scene that can redeem it. So, of course, I'm gonna give Transformers The Last Night an F. Michael Bay, you keep saying this is your last one. Please, please hold on to that promise. I never want to see you. I don't want to see your name on any more Transformers films. And honestly, Paramount, get your act together. We have to see at least a fun Transformers movie that's almost as fun as the first film again. It needs to happen. You want to keep making money, making pieces of crap over and over again that are pretty much the same thing each time is not going to help you out. Which is probably why you should never have hired Akiva Goldsman to head your writer's room in the first place. And with that, I am done. There's probably a lot more to say, and I could probably talk for hours about this film, but I gotta end it off here. Though, 34 minutes I've been recording. That's wonderful. Guys, if you've seen Transformers The Last Night, leave in the comments below what you thought of it. This is gonna be interesting. Honestly, I'm interested to see how you guys react to this. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time. I need to get another bottle of that.